Vermont, saying far too many Americans know a family member who is a gun violence victim and saying people should not have to worry about being shot at while going about their daily lives. The White House continues to call on Congress to pass stricter gun control laws, but there's pushback from lawmakers who say stricter laws would step on Second Amendment protections. And Argentinian President-elect Javier Milei is in Washington, D.C. today. The incoming conservative leader is meeting with the Biden administration's national security advisor and advisors from the Treasury Department. Milei's brash campaigning style draws comparisons to former President Donald Trump, and Trump praised Milei's election victory earlier this month. Milei is set to take office on December 10th. And today's the day that the Capitol Christmas tree begins lighting up the Capitol's west lawn. The 63-foot Norway spruce was picked out of the Monongahela National Forest in West Virginia, and workers have spent more than a week getting this tree ready for today's lighting ceremony. In Washington, I'm David Aid for Newsnet.
Turning to the 2024 presidential election, with candidate Nikki Haley picking up key financial support to boost her chances in the Republican presidential primary. Billionaire Charles Koch is throwing the resources and influence of his network behind the former South Carolina governor in the Republican presidential primary. This comes roughly 7 weeks out from the Iowa caucuses, and political observers say the announcement could dramatically reshape the GOP field. Earlier this year, AFP Action, a political arm of Koch's network, pledging to back a single contender in the Republican primary for the first time in its history. The network also made it clear it would not choose Donald Trump, hoping to start a, quote, new chapter. This endorsement will support a multi-million-dollar ad campaign in several Super Tuesday states. The group also has a current database of 1 million of voters. Hunter Biden is willing to testify on Capitol Hill in December, according to his lawyers. Lawyers for the president's son telling the House Oversight Committee that he's available to testify on December 13th, but will only do it publicly. Biden's team accuses the committee of previously using closed-door sessions to manipulate and distort the facts. The committee's goal is to determine whether the president committed an impeachable offense in connection to his family's foreign business dealings. Hunter Biden's legal team sending a letter about his testimony to the Republican House committee in response to a previous subpoena. The original subpoenas mark the first time the panel directly subpoenaed members of the Biden family. A judge sentencing disgraced former South Carolina attorney Alex Murdaugh to 27 years behind bars after pleading guilty to nearly 24 state financial crimes. At the hearing, victims Murdaugh defrauded and their attorneys giving emotional statements of betrayal. Murdaugh is currently serving 2 life sentences for the 2021 murders of his wife and son. He has requested a new trial in that case, citing alleged witness jury tampering by the county clerk. Sean P. Diddy Combs temporarily stepping down as chairman of his cable television network Revolt amid multiple sexual assault allegations against the music mogul. Revolt announcing Combs' decision on social media. It's not clear when he will return to his media company. R&B singer Cassie coming forward earlier this month accusing Combs of raping and beating her over the duration of their decades-long on and off-again relationship, which began in 2005. A day after the filing lawsuit, she and Combs reached a settlement. Following that settlement, 2 more women coming forward to accuse him of sexual abuse. The filings detail acts of sexual assault, beatings, and forced drugging. Combs continues to deny the allegations, accusing the 2 women of seeking to exploit the New York law that temporarily extends the statute of limitations. Charlie Munger, a billionaire and longtime friend and business partner of Warren Buffett, dies at the age of 99. Berkshire Hathaway announcing Munger died peacefully on Tuesday morning in a California hospital. No cause of death was given. Munger spent decades as Warren Buffett's right-hand man and partner at Berkshire. CEO Warren Buffett saying, quote, Berkshire Hathaway could not have been built to its present status without Charlie's inspiration, wisdom, and participation. Forbes estimates Munger was worth about $2.7 billion. Israel's military says another group of hostages, including 10 Israelis, has left Gaza. In exchange, Israel will release another 30 Palestinian prisoners. It's part of the two-day extension of the temporary ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. So far, under the agreement, 60 Israeli hostages are back home. A Hamas official says that it's looking to extend the ceasefire even further, which could result in the release of not just women and children, but also men and abducted Israeli soldiers. Israel is holding up its end of the deal, continuing to release Palestinian prisoners. CIA Director William Burns is in Qatar, attending meetings about the conflict and hostages, hoping to speed up the number of those released, particularly American hostages. The U.S. says there are still up to 9 Americans in captivity, including some women. And the pause in fighting allowing desperately needed aid into Gaza, with the UN World Food Program delivering food to more than 120,000 people in Gaza. However, the organization reiterates that the supplies it was able to provide are just not enough to address the level of hunger seen by staff in the UN shelters and communities. 61 World Food Program relief trucks were delivered to a hospital on Saturday. That's the largest number since the beginning of the crisis, with food, water, and emergency medical supplies. Since October 21st, 1,833 trucks with humanitarian aid reached Gaza through the Rafah crossing. Now to India, where those 41 construction workers who have been trapped underground for more than 2 weeks are now safe. Authorities finally succeeding in complicated rescue efforts today. International correspondent Ryan Thompson has the details.
After 17 days deep underground, 41 construction workers are now celebrating their newly found freedom. Their path to safety, a narrow escape, as they climb through a pipe only 3 feet in diameter. Not one of the men is even believed to be injured, despite initial fears that they all may not survive. India's Prime Minister calling it an inspiring moment for the nation, driven by courage and patience. Rescue efforts have been complicated by harsh weather and difficult terrain.
Because we don't know what it will throw us in our path again. We have had these issues earlier, so I think it is good to hope for the best and be prepared for whatever comes our way.
More than 2 weeks ago, the team was trapped after a landslide cut off access to their construction site. They were digging a mountainside tunnel through the Himalayan hills, but their supplies of food, water, and oxygen ran dangerously low until authorities were able to supply critical goods via a separate narrow pipe. Today, they say they are happy to be out and free, looking forward to seeing their families before returning back to the job. Reporting for Newsnet, I'm Ryan Thompson.
Pope Francis canceling his trip to Dubai for the UN climate conference on doctor's orders. According to the Vatican, the Pope is recovering from the flu and lung inflammation. Francis turns 87 next month and was scheduled to leave Rome Friday to address the COP28 meeting first thing Saturday morning. The announcement marks the second time the Pope's bad health forced him to cancel a trip. He had to postpone a planned trip to Congo and South Sudan in 2022 because of knee inflammation. France is bidding adieu to smoking at public parks and beaches. Tuesday, the country's health ministry announcing the new measures. That includes a smoking ban in public forest and other places like public spaces near schools. The minister did not give an exact timeline, but suggested that people could face fines as early as next year. The move is part of an effort to prevent some 75,000 tobacco-related deaths per year. Smokers in France can also expect cigarette prices to jump in the next few years. Virgin Atlantic is making history, flying the first transatlantic flight powered by 100% sustainable aviation fuel. The Boeing 787 took off from London Tuesday, heading toward New York. Virgin Atlantic says it uses 70 tons of fuel made mostly from waste cooking oils and animal fat. This flight was a demonstration and did not carry any paying passengers. Because the fuels are so new, current regulations prohibit airlines from using a blend of more than 50% sustainable aviation fuel. However, the UK Civil Aviation Authority gave a special permit for this test. All right, coming up in just 60 seconds, it's dry and cool for the majority of the nation, and we'll check in on the world of tennis. Weather and sports is next. Stay with us. I'm Jay Samuel, and you're watching Newsnet.
Some days, I don't have time to slow down. So sipping on coffee just isn't an option. That's when I turn to 5 Hour Energy. It's my 5-second coffee. Discover 5 Hour Energy.
You love running. Your muscles, not so much. Fatigue, cramps, long-term damage, these are among the effects of improper hydration. Your muscles need deep hydration, into the cells deep, but neither water nor popular hydration drinks can do that. Properly hydrate your muscles and you'll be surprised at your endurance and recovery. Find out what cellular hydration is about. Go to cellularhigh.com. That's cellularhigh.com.
Worried about your investments in this volatile economy? Let our experts at The Street guide you. Invest with confidence. Act now with Action Alerts Plus from The Street.
Thank you for joining us on Newsnet. I'm meteorologist John Gross. We're talking about the jet stream once again. Remember, that is what helps to depict where we see the colder temperatures versus the warmer air. Notice how far south the warmer air is tucked down. We're talking about areas right near the border from the United States, even going into areas near Mexico. That's where we're talking still about above average temperatures, and even into southern Florida as well. But as we go throughout time, you can definitely notice we're going to be talking still about more than our fair share of some colder air, and what we do call a trough in the jet stream that allows in some colder air from Canada. That does look to be taking over areas back near the Pacific Northwest, and even going into the Rockies as we go later into the week. Even still some colder numbers right there into the Great Lakes and into the Northeast as well, leading into the upcoming weekend. We do see some pattern changes going into next week, but at least your numbers, we're taking you throughout a Wednesday. Here it is, starting off the morning, lots of blue on the map, lots of 20s, lots of 30s as we start off the day today. At least the good news is we do rebound in the numbers a little bit more as you go areas into the mid-south, back near Texas, Oklahoma, into Arkansas. Right there you got a bunch of 50s and even some 60s coming back. Miami, you're back near 74, taking you into the afternoon, but compare that to Detroit, only 33 by later on today. As we take a look at the temperatures though, remember we were talking about that dip in the jet stream later this week. It does look like 6 to 10 days out. Areas into the west could be talking about numbers a little bit above average, but until then it's been a little bit snowy. We've been talking about lake effect snow chances primarily off of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, and even still going into the afternoon, still a few more inches to go.
News as it used to be. This is Newsnet.
Not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Wait, use the shovel and bucket of water, remember? Drown, stir, drown, feel.
Where'd you learn that?
SmokeyBear.com. Don't want to start a wildfire, right?
No. Only you can prevent wildfires.
Have you ever helped a fellow veteran?
Of course.
Yes. Have you ever asked for help yourself?
It's always tough, right? I always feel like I can solve my own problems, but eventually, you just can't deal with it on your own. And you start to question, maybe people would be better off without me. When you realize that you're not alone, once you take that first step, there's so much support.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour, walk a mile in my shoes, walk a mile in my shoes.
The impact of a meal goes well beyond feeding our bodies. Because when people are fed, futures are nourished. Everyone deserves to live a full life. And with your help, together we can end hunger. Join the movement at feedingamerica.org/actnow.
Back in, everybody. Welcome in for a look at sports here on Newsnet. Thanks for joining me. My name is Ben Holden. Well, college football coming down to the wire here and down to the stretch. The conference championship games, they take place this coming weekend. And just after 7 Eastern time Tuesday, the latest and newest college football playoff rankings were unveiled. Here we go with a look at the top 8. At number 8, Crimson Tide of Alabama. They remain in that spot. They face Georgia in the SEC title game Saturday. Texas stays at 7. They take on Oklahoma State in the Big 12 title game Saturday. Ohio State, they drop way down. They're in at number 6 after the loss against Michigan. Oregon, they play Washington in the Pac-12 title game Friday night in Vegas. That should be a heck of a game. Florida State in the top 4. They face Louisville in the ACC title game on Saturday. Washington, number 3, facing that Oregon team. They've had quite a year. Then Michigan, they're at number 2. They face Iowa Saturday night in Indy in the Big Ten title game. And the Georgia Bulldogs, they'll put their SEC record 29-game win streak on the line Saturday against Alabama. By the way, Alabama, the last team to beat them way back in 2021 in this same game, the SEC title game. Tennis on Tuesday, the next-gen ATP Finals. This tournament features some of the best 21 and under players in the world. Great match Tuesday morning featuring Arthur Fils from France, who's number 1 ranked and seeded 36th in the world. He volleyed against number 7 seed Lucas Nardi of Italy. Nardi would win the opening set 4-2, but Fils came back in the next 2 sets. They needed 5 sets to find a winner, and it was Fils who came out on top. The difference might have been the second set when the top seed won it on the tiebreak. A mild upset in the match between Flavio Cobolli and Dominic Stricker. Cobolli from Italy and ranked 5th in this tournament. They would tie in the first set, 2 points apiece, but in the end, Cobolli would storm back to take the set and win it, getting the job done. Flavio Cobolli wins the match in 4, defeating Stricker 4-2, 4-1, and 4-2. With the win, Cobolli improved to 1-0 in green group play at that event. To the soccer pitch on Tuesday, UEFA Champions League, FC Porto and Barcelona scoreless in the 30th. Porto attacking, first shot attempt stop, good stop, but the second is not. It's sent home by Pepe. 1-0 Porto on top. 2 minutes later, great outside ball. Watch the strike coming up here from Joao Cancelo. A world-class kick. Tied the match at 1-1. Second half of the match now. 57th minute. Joao Felix in tight. He puts it away. 2-1 Barcelona. That would prove to be the game winner in a great match between those two outstanding sides in Barcelona. AC Milan and Dortmund. What an environment for this match. You gotta love the turnout and the support. As for the match, 6-minute PK for AC Milan. No dice. Gregor Kobel, big-time save out of him. Later in the first half, PK for Dortmund. 10th minute, Marco Reus. That's how you strike a PK. 1-0 Dortmund with a lead. Milan tied it in the 37th. Then in the second half, Dortmund in the 59th minute. Some nice passing there. Jamie Bino Gittins with a slick kick in tight there. Dortmund went on to win the match. 3-1 the final. And finally, news breaking Tuesday night with the Dallas Mavericks and their owner Mark Cuban. Well, he is selling a significant stake of the ownership of the Mavericks. The Adelson family is the group that will take over that ownership stake. Cuban will still run the team, though. In 2000, Mark Cuban bought the Dallas Mavericks for $285 million. He's agreed to sell them for $3.5 billion. That is a return on your investment for Mark Cuban. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Ben Holden.
At The Street, we've always been about connecting Wall Street to Main Street, introducing the Street's expanded world of financial possibilities. Earn, invest, live. It's your life, your way.
Escape the never-ending cycle of nasal medications with Navage Nasal Care.
I tried a bunch of solutions. I tried nasal sprays, I tried allergy medications, and I tried the Neti Pot, but I found the Navage was just much better on all fronts.
Navage Flush is sailing through the nasal passages to help clear congestion by quickly sucking out mucus, allergens, and germs without drugs.
So I've referred a lot of friends and family to Navage. The Navage is worth every penny, and then some.
Available at major retailers or online at Navage.com.
Give us 30 minutes, we'll give you the sports world. Scores and highlights from all the best games, 24/7. Gaming odds, 24/7. No meaningless conversation. Watch Sports News Highlights.
That's $78.29.
Oh, I've only got $50. Take out the cheese puffs and the broccoli. I mean, who likes broccoli?
I don't. Only $22.87 to go.
It would be faster with the Empower app. Empower Cash Advance gives you up to $250 instantly. No late fees, interest, or credit checks.
I've got money. Keep the cheese puffs, but leave out the broccoli.
Get Empower Cash Advance up to $250 instantly. Download the Empower app today.
You work hard. You deserve a mobile bank that will go to work for you. With up to $200 in overdraft protection and early paydays, GoToBank, the mobile bank that works for you. Open an account at gotobank.com.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. The same way you plan each detail for those moments. Start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make.
News as it used to be. This is Newsnet.
Thanks for keeping it here on Newsnet. Powerhouse is the word of today's Hollywood Report, and Newsnet's Brooklyn Lambert is here to tell us more. Brooklyn?
Marvel announces the leader of their next project, and Mark Cuban has some news about his tenure on Shark Tank. But we'll start off with one of two powerhouses in the music industry. Taylor Swift has achieved yet another milestone, but this time it's at the global box office.
Welcome to the Eras Tour.
AMC officially announces that Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour, has surpassed the $250 million mark at the global box office. The film now sits among the top 20 biggest films in 2023. And get this, the movie only cost a mere $15 million to make, which makes this film not only one of the most successful, but the most profitable this year. And to add on to all of this, Swift announces that her birthday present to her fans is that Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour, will be available to rent or buy starting on her birthday, December 13th.
When I was a little girl.
Speaking of dominant female entertainers, Jennifer Lopez announces her first solo album in a decade. The new album, This Is Me Now, was announced in her newsletter on the JLo on Monday, reading, quote, "The musical experience begins February 16th, 2024. Along with the drop of the album, This Is Me Now, the film will arrive on Prime Video the same day."
Michael, say hello to all your new Marvel fans.
Hi, guys.
Over in the film industry, the Marvel franchise is working quickly to get things moving on the newest Avenger film titled Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. And it looks like they found their leader of the project. Marvel mainstay Michael Waldron will tackle Kang Dynasty. Waldron entered the Marvel fold as the creator of Loki and went on to write Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It's confirmed he's also the writer behind Avengers: Secret Wars, which will follow Kang Dynasty. Kang is due out on May 1st, 2026, while Secret Wars has a release date of May 7th in 2027.
You are this business, and this business is you.
It's my baby.
Right, your baby.
Mark Cuban plans to leave the ABC unscripted series Shark Tank after nearly 15 years as a regular on the program in 2025, after the season wraps up filming. The billionaire owner of the Mavericks initially revealed the decision in an All the Smoke podcast episode. He says, quote, "I just want to have a couple summers with my teens before they go off on their own. Nothing to do with the show. I love what it represents and how it motivates entrepreneurs around the world." Be sure to catch Mark Cuban on Shark Tank now before he goes. I'm Brooklyn Lambert with your Hollywood Report.
As we close out 2023, it's time to start looking ahead and thinking about what you might want to do differently with your personal finances. Action Alerts Plus Investing Club team member Stephen Sarge Guilfoyle explains how he's approaching 2024.
How is your outlook for next year shaping? How is it coming together now that we're already staring impossibly at the end of November, right around the corner?
I think if you've been cautious, as I have been, I think you want to maintain that posture going forward. We are enjoying something of a seasonal rally here. I don't know if it goes away through the first few days of January. Typically, it gets really red hot towards the very last few days of December and first few days of January, and then we go off a cliff a little bit. So I do see us going over that cliff a little bit. when the January effect, if that kind of wears off and it gets a little nasty into February, especially if the government is shut down, especially if that provokes, what was it, Moody's the other day, which downgraded their outlook on U.S. debt. I think once all three have then taken away the AAA rating and probably put a further negative outlook on U.S. credit ratings, I think that will have a negative impact. I think that could reverberate across the economy at a time when the Walmarts of this world and the Targets of the world are going into their own little problems where their margins are being compressed by deflation. The part of the economy that is consumer facing, where the point of sale is between the consumer and the retailer, is going to run into a bit of a problem here.
Sarge, would you say that you are currently bullish or more bearish for the new year?
I think I'm spotty. I think you have to pick your spots. I don't. It sounds like I'm copping out, but I'm not copping out. I think investors need to have a large cash balance as long as they can get 5% plus for that cash. If you can get 5% plus for that cash in 30-day paper, hey, you're still liquid if your paper's tied up for 30 days. That's not 90 days. It's not 180 days. So if you can keep rolling that over while the short-term rates are this high, how much are you really missing out on?
Up next, we'll have national headlines. If you're following the news, you have to follow us. Keep it right here at newsnetmedia.com. I'm Jay Samuel. We'll be right back.
Right now
on Newsnet Nightside Edition. Former First Lady Rosalynn Carter was remembered at a ceremony attended by hundreds in Atlanta. Plus, President Joe Biden's son Hunter says he will appear before the House Oversight Committee in their quest to tie him and his father to wrongdoing, but only if it's public. And gas prices are plummeting across much of the country, and we'll break down why as Newsnet Nightside Edition starts now.
Now, on air and online. News as it used to be. This is Newsnet Nightside Edition.
Hello and thanks for joining us. I'm Remington Hernandez. Now let's take a look at the news from across the country and around the world. Presidents past and present and multiple First Ladies attended an invitation-only memorial for former First Lady Rosalynn Carter in Atlanta.
For spacious skies,
Mrs. Carter died November 19th at the age of 96. More than 1,000 people filled the sanctuary of Glen Memorial Church. Seated in the front row, her husband of 77 years, former President Jimmy Carter. He was joined by the Bidens, Clintons, and every living former First Lady. The tribute included some of the former First Lady's favorite hymns. Her daughter also shared a love letter her father wrote 75 years ago, since he was unable to speak at the memorial.
My darling, every time I have ever been away from you, I have been thrilled when I returned to discover just how wonderful you are. While I am away, I try to convince myself that you really are not, could not be, as sweet and beautiful as I remember. But when I see you, I fall in love with you all over again. Does that seem strange to you? It doesn't to me. Goodbye, darling. Until tomorrow, Jimmy.
Rosalynn Carter's funeral will take place Wednesday in Plains at Maranatha Baptist Church, where the Carters have been members since returning to Georgia after his presidency. She'll be buried after at a private gravesite service in a plot the couple will share. Now let's turn to Washington. The Department of Justice continues to investigate a weekend shooting in Vermont as a possible hate crime, and as the victims continue recovering, gun violence is once again a topic on Capitol Hill. Newsnet Bureau Chief David Aide reports.
Today, the Senate Judiciary Committee holding a hearing on gun violence.
We have shown we can reduce the risk of a shooting long before someone picks up a gun with intent to harm. Through your bipartisan commitment to this public health approach, our country can reduce firearm injury and death for all.
The five-person panel, a mix of academics, a former state prosecutor, and a fellow from the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank here in D.C.
Most gun crimes are perpetrated not by ordinary lawful gun owners, but by a small subset of repeat offenders who are already prohibited from owning guns.
On Monday, President Joe Biden released a statement about the shooting in Vermont, saying far too many Americans know a family member who is a gun violence victim, and saying people should not have to worry about being shot at while going about their daily lives. The White House continues to call on Congress to pass stricter gun control laws, but there's pushback from lawmakers who say stricter laws would step on Second Amendment protections. And Argentinian President-elect Javier Milei is in Washington, D.C. today. The incoming conservative leader is meeting with the Biden administration's national security advisor and advisors from the Treasury Department. Milei's brash campaigning style draws comparisons to former President Donald Trump, and Trump praised Milei's election victory earlier this month. Milei is set to take office on December 10th. And today's the day that the Capitol Christmas tree begins lighting up the Capitol's west lawn. The 63-foot Norway spruce was picked out of the Monongahela National Forest in West Virginia, and workers have spent more than a week getting this tree ready for today's lighting ceremony. In Washington, I'm David Aid for Newsnet.
Attorneys for Hunter Biden say he is willing to testify on Capitol Hill on December 13th, but only if he can do so publicly. Biden's team accuses the House Oversight Committee of using closed-door sessions to manipulate and distort the facts. The committee's goal is to determine whether the president committed an impeachable offense in connection to his family's foreign business dealings. And Congressman James Comer of Kentucky, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, stood firm, saying Republicans expect full cooperation with their original demand for a private deposition, but did not rule out public testimony in the future. Now to election 2024. Presidential candidate Nikki Haley picked up key financial support to boost her chances in the Republican presidential primary. Billionaire Charles Koch is throwing the resources and influence of his network behind the former South Carolina governor. This comes roughly 7 weeks out from the Iowa caucuses, and political observers say the announcement could dramatically reshape the GOP field. Earlier this year, a political arm of Koch's network pledged to back a single contender in the Republican primary for the first time in its history. The network also made it clear it would not be choosing Donald Trump, hoping to start a, quote, new chapter. The endorsement will support a multi-million-dollar ad campaign in several Super Tuesday states. Israel's military says another group of hostages, including 10 Israelis, has left Gaza. In exchange, Israel released another 30 Palestinian prisoners. It's part of the two-day expansion of the temporary ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. So far under the agreement, 60 Israeli hostages are back home. A Hamas official says it's looking to extend the ceasefire even further, which could result in the release of not just women and children, but also men and abducted Israeli soldiers. CIA Director William Burns, meanwhile, is in Qatar, attending meetings about the conflict and the hostages, hoping to speed up the number of those released, particularly American hostages. The U.S. says there are still up to 9 Americans in captivity, including some women. In Russia, a Moscow court has extended the detention of a Wall Street Journal reporter arrested on espionage charges. The hearing for Evan Gershkovich took place behind closed doors, with authorities claiming the details of the criminal case against the American journalist are classified. While on a reporting trip to a Russian city back in March, Gershkovich was detained. Russia's Federal Security Service alleges the reporter collected information on state secrets and activities of the Russian military-industrial complex for the U.S. Washington says he's being wrongfully detained, however. Russian authorities haven't detailed any evidence to support the espionage charges. Despite this, he will continue to be held until at least January 30th. Pope Francis has canceled his trip to Dubai for the UN climate conference on doctor's orders. According to the Vatican, the Pope is recovering from the flu and lung inflammation. Francis turns 87 next month and was scheduled to leave Rome Friday to address the COP28 meeting first thing Saturday morning. The announcement marks the second time the Pope's bad health forced him to cancel the trip. He had to postpone a planned trip to the Congo and South Sudan in 2022 because of a knee inflammation. Back stateside, a judge sentenced disgraced former South Carolina attorney Alex Murdaugh to 27 years behind bars after he pled guilty to nearly 24 state financial crimes. At the hearing, victims Murdaugh defrauded and their attorneys gave emotional statements of betrayal on Tuesday. Murdaugh is currently serving 2 life sentences for the 2021 murders of his wife and son. He has requested a new trial in that case, citing alleged witness jury tampering by the county clerk. A ransomware attack has prompted a healthcare chain operating 30 hospitals in 6 states to divert patients from some of its emergency rooms. The attack even caused some elective procedures to be put on pause. In a statement, Ardent Health Service says the attack occurred on November 23rd, and the company took its network offline, suspending user access to its information technology applications, including the software used to document patient care. The company says it cannot yet confirm the extent of any patient health or financial information that has been compromised. On top of the hospitals, Ardent has more than 200 care sites with upwards of 1,400 aligned providers in Oklahoma, Texas, New Jersey, New Mexico, Idaho, and Kansas.